So this afternoon we have the great honor having two brothers here, and I'm sure actually we don't need a big introduction. Everyone should know them. Brahmananda Prabhu, his younger brother Gargamuni Prabhu, who together joined Srila Prabhupada very early.
When we would go up to see Prabhupada in his room, we say, "Oh, Rupa and Sanatan have come."
And well, from the very beginning, one thing I've done over the last few years actually has been reading a lot of Srila Prabhupada's letters. And you can hardly go through one day when there's not a letter to Brahmananda. From the very beginning and all through the years, Srila Prabhupada had Brahmananda working on many different, everything from book publishing to buying a property. 1975, Srila Prabhupada sent myself and Brahmananda to Hawaii because there had been disturbance there. I wasn't going there to clear that up. I was going there for health reasons, but he sent his secretary Brahmananda there to make sure that everything went smoothly. So from the very start and all through the years, Brahmananda has always been there for Srila Prabhupada to help clear up matters and keep Srila Prabhupada from getting a big headache. Prabhupada would sometimes talk about the headaches. So he was there to solve them. His brother Gargamuni, I had the pleasure of meeting the very beginning of 1973, first time, and he was the president of the temple in Calcutta. So I was also very fortunate to be around him. And of course, every morning it was clear to me, who had just joined the party, just joined Srila Prabhupada, and was only a devotee for 1 year, to see the close relationship that Srila Prabhupada had with these particular disciples and others who had come very early. It was much different than the relationship that I had with Srila Prabhupada. There was a definite family feeling that was there. So I don't want to take a lot of time, but I'm very happy to have the opportunity to introduce both of them. I consider them both friends. Hope they feel the same way. And I'm looking forward to hearing from them. So please give them a very warm welcome here, Krishna Balaram Mandir. Hare Krishna.
So I was listening this morning to the Turya Das, he was saying how sometimes we cause Prabhupada, headaches. So I'll tell you one thing that I did. Actually, due to my passion and foolishness, once I had the entire construction stopped for the temple here. What it was is that I was living in Prabhupada's house. I was living in the ante room. Yeah, I would sleep there. There's Tejas. Look at that.
My first involvement was when I met Prabhupada.
And
I was a very young,
I would take my prasadam there, and I would sleep there. And
so I went up to the room.
then they built a latrine, and then there was a kind of a bathing place, where you take the bucket.
So I went with the
So Prabhupada's house was livable, but the temple was just, a construction site. So I would take my bath at noontime before prasadam, And then I hung my gamsha just outside the door. There was a line. So I had this very nice gamsha. And then, it would dry very quickly. I would come out and bring it in. Anyway, one day I went out and the gamsha's gone. I said, well, what to do? So I had to go and get a new gamsha. So I got a new gamsha, and then about 2 or 3 days later, same thing happened. Gamsha's gone from the line. So then I got angry. So then I had to get another gamsha. But this time I knew somebody was stealing that gamsha. So I hung out the gamsha and then I waited, I watched. And sure enough, one of the construction guys, skinny little, and he comes up, looks around, and he snatches the gamsha. So I was so attached to the gamsha. That gamsha was like me, So I ran out and I tackled him, brought him to the ground, threw on my wrestling holds, and I was, ripping him apart. And he was screaming. So finally, he ran away. Anyway, he went and told all the other workers what I did. And they went on a bond, completely stopped all work. And they were demonstrating and this and that. And Prabhupada was just inside in his rooms. He heard there's a commotion. But he didn't know what was going on. And nobody dared go tell Prabhupada what was going on. So this went on for like 2 hours. Completely downed all tools. And then finally somebody went to Prabhupada and told him. So then Prabhupada called me and Prabhupada said, I'm building a temple here, and you're my servant. You're supposed, and you've completely stopped the construction. And Prabhupada was just flabbergasted. How could I do such a stupid thing? And this is the result. It was so difficult to construct, as everyone is told. And finally, when they got the crews working, then I stopped it all. And Prabhupada he wasn't angry, he was disgusted. So finally then Prabhupada told me, all right, you have to go and apologize to him. You have to go and bow down to him and touch his feet. So I did that. I went out and I found him. And of course that was successful, and they accepted my apology, and then they resumed work. So I can say that the temple was built in spite of me, not because of me. Anyway, that's just a story. So you going to play that? Okay. And the installation in L.A.?
Yeah, it was in LA, but
Yeah.
for all in
So, since we're celebrating the installation of the deity, we have the lecture Prabhupada gave for the installation of Rukmini Dwarkadish in Los Angeles. And Prabhupada gives the essence of deity worship, what it means to worship the deity, how to worship the deity.
Okay, well, this is just going to be sound, so I want to put. See, so you play your music. I can.
Now, today, this function of installing deity, this is authorized. Just like several times I've given the example that when you put your mails in a box in the street, because it is written there, U.S. mail, you know that it is authorized box. And if you put your letters within this box, it will surely reach the destination. The post office will work. So there is no difference between the huge post office building and that small box, because it is authorized. Similarly, the difference between idol worship and deity worship is like that. Unless authorized process is accepted, it is idol worship. That is the general rule. If somebody thinks that there is a box, red and blue, on the street, why shall I go? So, to that box, let me have similar box at my door, and it will be cleared by the postman, because it is blue and red. That will not be. Because the box which you put at your door, that is not authorized. Similarly, we have to worship the deity according to the authorized system. Just like in our Gauriya Sampradaya, there is authorized system by the Goswamis, and there is a big book which is called Hari Bhakti Vilas. So everything is stated there, how the Vaishnava family should have their all functions. It is called Vaishnava Smriti, Shruti and Smriti. So we have to follow this regulation of the Shruti, Vedas and Smriti. Smriti means derived from the Vedas. Srila Rupa Goswami says, Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatriki Vidhin Vina Vaikantiki Hare Bhakti Utpada Eva Kalpata. Without following the rules and regulations of Vedic injunction, without a reference to the regulative principle mentioned in different smritis, without reference to the Puranas, and without reference to the Pancharatriki Vidhi. The Pancharatriki Vidhi means It is a special consistent for this age. Vedic Vedi and Pancharatriki Vidi. Vedic Vidi is very authorized. But this Vedic Vidi is specially meant for those who are highly elevated Brahmins. In this age, it is accepted as a fact by the Shastras. Kalo Sudra Samabha. In this age, nobody is actually bona fide Brahmins by birth. Formerly, they used to be. The family tradition, the Garbhadan system, the sanskar were strictly followed. Therefore, a son born of a Brahmin father was accepted as Brahmin, not immediately, but going through the process. But in this age, because it is very difficult to find out a person who is born of a qualified Brahmin, therefore Narad Pancharatra is there. So these Goswamis, Rupa Goswami especially recommends Shruti, Smriti, Puranadi, Panch. Either you follow the principles of Shruti, Vedas, followed by Smriti, Puranadi, or you follow the Pancharatriki Vidhi. The Pancharatriki Vidhi, just like we are introducing in this temple for worshipping deity, but actually the deity can be worshipped by the bona fide Brahmins. There was agitation in India, perhaps you know, that Gandhi stamped some persons as Harijan. Harijan. They were coming from the Bhangis. Bhangis means sweepers or the cleaners of the toilet rooms. So Gandhi accepted them. The government was creating, British government was creating faction between high caste, low caste. So Gandhi thought that I shall make these Bhangis and Chamans as Harijan, as great devotees. But simply by rubber stamping how one can become devotee, that is not possible. Without going the Pancharatriki Vidhi, they remain the same unclean, drunkard and all nonsense habit, and simply by rubber stamping Harijan. No. Here, what we are doing, it is not rubber stamp. It is actually training according to the Pancharatriki Vidhi. We are training all boys to become Brahmin, to refrain from 4 kinds of sinful activities, to take bath, to take this, to that. And above all, chanting Hare Krishna, Chetadattvanamajana, cleansing of all sinful activities. So in this way, Harijan can be made, but not that you pick up somebody nonsense and rubber stamp this Harijan. No. There must be process. There is no hindrance for anyone to become Harijan. Harijan means God's person or devotee. Hari means God, Krishna. And John means his person. Just like we have got here, government servant, special, or ordinary person. So Harijan means the servants of the Supreme Lord. So that is not ordinary thing. There is no harm to create Harijan by regular process, but you cannot make Harijan simply by stamp. Bhagavad Gita says equal opportunity for everyone. Man hi patha jepishu papajunai. Low class born birth is understood due to sinful activity. Low class birth, animal birth. sinful activities. But Krishna said, Papajuna, born in sinful family. So, never mind. Man hi partha vipasita, if he becomes Krishna conscious by bona fide process, man hi partha vipasita. Vipasita means bona fide process, not an imitation, bona fide. And bona fide means as they are depicted, as they are described, as they are enjoined in the authorized shastra like Suti, Sruti, Purana, Adipani. Man hi partha vipasita jepi supapajana. Never mind in whatever family one is born, sinful family, never mind. Sriya, Shudra, Tatha, Vaishya, including women and Shudras and Vaishyas, they are considered as less intelligent. They are considered as less intelligent. Therefore, according to Vedic system, a boy born in a Brahmin family, he is allowed all the sanskaras, reformatory, purificatory process. But the girl is not. Why? No, because a girl has to follow her husband. So if her husband is Brahmin, automatically she becomes Brahmin. There is no need of separate reformation. And by chance, she may be married with a person who is not a Brahmin, then what is the use of making her a Brahmin? That is the general method. So therefore, even born in a Brahmin family, a woman is taken as woman, not as Brahmin. But Krishna says, never mind. Even if she is woman, even she is Shudra, even she is Vaishya, or any other, I am to say, family born, never mind. Man hi partha vipasita, if anyone is bona fidely made Krishna conscious, stepi janti parangati. So, his way is open to the path of Vaikuntha, parangati. King puna brahmana punya bhaktya rajasayasthatha. So, Krishna consciousness is so nice. It opens to the door of highest perfectional platform for everyone, provided he follows the rules and regulations. That is the only condition. Otherwise, it's simply by imitating. If somebody thinks, oh, I can become like that, if such and such person can become, I can do. No. That is warned by Rupa Goswami, Suti, Sruti, Purana, Adi, Panchadastri ki Vidigamina, Vaikanti ki Hare Bhakti, Utpata eva kalpate. If he simply imitated, oh, that will not do. So, do not try to imitate. Follow the simple rules and regulations. It is very nice. And above all, chant Hare Krishna, you become purified. Without being purified, you cannot touch Radha Krishna. There in the Vedas it is stated, without becoming Brahma, you cannot approach Brahma. Just like without becoming fire, you cannot approach fire, because the inconsistency of temperature, it will burn. Just like here is fire and I am feeling temperature. But the fire flames within the fire, they do not feel. Because the temperature is the same. Similarly, without becoming Brahma, without understanding oneself, realizing himself, nobody can, Krishna is the Param Brahma. Parabrahma param dhama pavitram paramam bhavan. That is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Purusham shashvatam. Therefore one has to keep himself very purified. Otherwise you cannot touch Krishna. That is not possible. It is fire. So you have to become fire. And how to become fire? Fire, you are also fire. But now you are covered fire. Covered by this material body. Therefore, you have to spiritualize this body by purificatory process. The same example, just like the iron rod. It is iron, but you put into the fire, it becomes warmer, then red hot, and then it is fire. Similarly, by this process, chanting process, by regulative process, you are becoming warmer. And when you fully become red hot warm, then your body is as good as Krishna. So, we have to keep ourselves always in the fire of Krishna consciousness. Then everything is all right. Otherwise, it will become dull and it will be simply idol worship. That's all. That is the difference between idol worship and deity worship. If there is no life, then it is idol worship, heathenism. And when there is life, feeling, where is Krishna? Here is Krishna. Oh, I have to serve Krishna. I have to dress him. I have to serve Radharani. She is here. Oh, I must do it very nicely. And as far as possible, decorate her to the best capacity. In this, if you always feel Krishna conscious, then you are fire. The same example, keeping with the fire. And if you think it is brass made dull, I am to say, idol. Jijathamang prapadante tang sathaiva bhajam. If you think this is a brass made idol, then it will remain a brass made idol to you forever. But if you elevate yourself to higher platform of Krishna consciousness, then this Krishna will talk with you. This Krishna will talk with you. There is a Banshidas Babaji Maharaj. He was talking with his deity. Krishna, just like Madan Mohan. He was talking with Sanatana Goswami. Madan Mohan, Sanatana Goswami at that time had no temple. He was hanging his deity on the tree. So Madan Mohan was talking with him, Sanatana, you are bringing all these dry chapatis and it is stale and you don't give me even little salt. How can I eat? Sanatana Goswami says, sir, where shall I go? Whatever I get, I offer you. You kindly accept. I cannot move, old man. So Krishna had to eat that. Because the bhakta is offering, he cannot refuse. Jimang bhaktya prajaccha. The real thing is bhakti. What you can offer to Krishna, everything belongs to Krishna. What you have got, what is your value? And what is the value of your things? There is nothing. Therefore, the real thing is bhaktya. Real thing is your feeling. Krishna, kindly take it. I have no qualification. I am most rotten, fallen. But I have brought this thing for you. Please take. This will be accepted. Don't be perturbed. Always be careful. You are dealing with Krishna. That is my request. Thank you very much. Now, today,
So the first question is, why did Srila Prabhupada install Krishna Balaram in Brindavan? There is no Krishna Balaram temple in Brindavan. And in the history, the Goswamis, Rupa Goswami found Govinda, Sanatan Goswami found Madan Mohan, Jiva Goswami, Damodar, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Ramanand. So there's always Krishna. And there are thousands of Radha Krishna temples in Vrindavan. So why did Prabhupada install Krishna Balaram? Who can answer? Dhananjaya? I can't hear. Is there a mic? Anyone who can answer this question correctly is going to get a prize. I don't know. We'll give you a CD. Yeah, pirated.
Srila Prabhupada was asked this question many times. And he replied and he said, this area of Brindavan is known as Ramanreti. And Ramanreti is the place where Krishna and Balaram, they would sport on the banks, the sandy banks of the Jamuna, while the cows were eating the fresh grass.
That's all you got? I mean, of course, that's true, but that's kind of obvious. But there's an esoteric reason why Prabhupada installed Krishna Balaram. I know you know, so I'm not going to tell you. Oh, you know?
I'm just after the prize. I'm trying for the prize. I'm trying for the prize.
Oh, okay.
One can't approach Radha and Krishna unless you go through Shri Krishna Balaram Gaur Nitai and Guru Gauranga. You can't approach Radha and Krishna unless you have Lord Balaram's mercy and Guru's mercy.
How do you know that?
I heard you say that last year, but I had an inkling as well from hearing Srila Prabhupada.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you listened. So now I'm going to give the authorized answer from Prabhupada's books. And it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Madhya Lila, chapter 16, the Lord's attempt to go to Brindavan. So there's a well-known verse where Gadadhar Pandit tells Lord Chaitanya that wherever you stay is in Vrindavan. But still, you go to Vrindavan just to instruct people. Otherwise, you will do whatever you think best. Actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is Vrindavan. So Prabhupada writes in the purport that it was not essential for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to go to Vrindavan, for wherever he stayed was immediately converted to Vrindavan. Indeed, that place where the river Ganges and the river Jamuna and all other places of pilgrimage, this was also expressed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself when he danced in the Rath Yatra. At that time, he said his very mind was Vrindavan. Because his mind was Vrindavan, all the pastimes of Radha and Krishna were taking place within himself. Nonetheless, just to teach people, he visited Boma Brindavan, Brindavan Dham in this material world. In this way, the Lord instructed everyone to visit Brindavan Dham, which is a very holy place. Materialists consider Brindavan Dham as unclean city because there are many monkeys and dogs there, and along the bank of the Jamuna there's refuse. Some time ago, a materialistic man asked me, "Why are you living in Brindavan? Why have you selected such a dirty place to live after retiring?" So such a person cannot understand that the earthly Brindavan Dham is always a representation of the original Brindavan Dham. Consequently, Brindavan Dham is as worshipable as Lord Krishna, according to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy. Lord Krishna and his abode, Brindavan, are equally worshipable. Sometimes materialistic people who have no spiritual understanding go to Brindavan as tourists. One who goes to Brindavan with such a materialistic vision cannot derive any spiritual benefit, and such a person is not convinced that Krishna and Brindavan are identical. Since they are identical, Brindavan is as worshipable as Lord Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's vision is different from the vision of an ordinarily materialistic person. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally renovated Brindavan Dham and advised his chief disciples, Rupa and Sanatan, to develop it and open it to attract the spiritual vision of the general populace. At present, there are about 5,000 temples in Brindavan. And still, our society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, is constructing a huge, magnificent temple for the worship of Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram, along with Radha Krishna and Guru Gauranga. Since there is no prominent Krishna Balaram temple in Brindavan, we are attempting to construct one so that people will be attracted to Krishna Balaram or Nittai Gaura Chandra. And then Prabhupada quotes Narottam Das Thakur, Vrajendra Nandanaye Sachi Sutta Hailase, that Narottam Das Thakur says that Balaram and the son of Maharaj Nanda have advented themselves as Gaura Nittai. To propagate this fundamental principle, we are establishing a Krishna Balaram temple to broadcast to the world that worship of Gaur Nittai is the same as worship of Krishna Balaram. Although it is very difficult to enter into the Radha Krishna pastimes, most of the devotees of Brindavan are attracted to the Radha Krishna Leela. However, since Nittai Gaura Chandra are direct incarnations of Balaram and Krishna, we can be directly in touch with Lord Balaram and Lord Krishna through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. Those who are highly elevated in Krishna consciousness can enter into the pastimes of Radha Krishna through the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is said, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a combination of Radha and Krishna. Rajendra Nandana say, Sachi Sutta Haila say, Balaram Haila Nitai, the son of Sachi is none other than the son of Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, and Nityananda Prabhu is the same as Balaram. Did you get that? So, you know, we may think, well, we're going to enter into Radha Krishna Leela, but first, that's all right, but first you have to be saved by Nittai Gaurachandra. And, or Guru Gauranga. Prabhupada installed his own deity. No, I don't think any acharya has ever done that. They installed their own deity on the altar. He had to teach us, otherwise how we would know. So everyone, I'm sure they have their favorite altar, Krishna Balaram or Radha Shamsundar. And I also have my favorite altar. What is my favorite altar? Guru Gauranga. So, now the next question is, who created the Krishna Balaram Mandir? Anyone can answer? Who created? Who? Boy, talk about fruitive. You can't hear? He asked if there's any prize for answering this question. Are you again? Can't hear you.
The whole of the Guru Parampara.
Yeah. But I want a specific answer. What Prabhupada said, actually he wrote in his purport, Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada says, who created? First of all, creation, what does creation come from?
Lord Balaram.
Huh?
Lord Balaram.
No, what prompts creation? All right, I'll tell you the answer. Desire. First you have to have desire, then you create the thing. So, in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 13. Chapter 13 is stealing the boys and calves by Brahma. What's the significance of this chapter? Stealing the boys and calves by Brahma. What's the importance? This was the last chapter that Prabhupada translated of Srimad Bhagavatam. Right here in Brindavan, in his house, on his bed. You've all seen the photos of Pradumya holding the dictaphone. So, this is the final chapter, and this verse, this purport, is one of the final verses that Prabhupada composed. So we should think, the final words are most important. So in this purport, Prabhupada reveals, he talks about himself, which is very rare. Prabhupada in his purports hardly ever wrote about himself. He writes about himself, and he writes about the Krishna Balaram Mandir. So the verse number 50, is about the desires of the pure devotees. Do pure devotees have desires? And if they do, what are those desires? And where do those desires come from? Well, the verse explains that desire in the pure devotee is created by the sidelong glances of Vishnu or Krishna. So Prabhupada is writing about the word Svarkarthanam refers to great desires. As mentioned in this verse, the glance of Lord Vishnu creates the desires of the devotees. A pure devotee, however, has no desires. Therefore, Sanatana Goswami comments that because the desires of devotees whose attention is fixed on Krishna have already been fulfilled, the Lord's sidelong glances create variegated desires in relation to Krishna and devotional service. In the material world, desire is a product of Rajaguna and Tamaguna. But desire in the spiritual world gives rise to a variety of everlasting transcendental service. Thus, the word Svarkarthanam refers to eagerness to serve Krishna. In Brindavan, there is a place where there was no temple, but a devotee desired, quote, "Let there be a temple. Let there be seva, devotional service," unquote. Therefore, what was once an empty corner has now become a place of pilgrimage. Such are the desires of a devotee. So, we may think that we constructed this temple and the deities and everything, and But actually, it was simply due to Prabhupada's desire. He wanted a temple in Vrindavan. And it was created. You know, simply even this phrase, "Let there be a temple." You know where that comes from? That it's a biblical phrase in Genesis. Because Prabhupada, he read the Bible at Scottish churches. Let there be light, and there was light. Let there be creation, there was creation. Let there be a temple, and there was a temple. So it was, Prabhupada is, he refers to himself as a devotee. He doesn't, in the third person, he doesn't even refer to himself in the first person. He's so humble. So because one devotee desired, even it was a vacant place, now it has become a place of pilgrimage. And we can see that in Prabhupada's entire history, his career, that everything happened because of Prabhupada's desire. We couldn't see that. He didn't reveal it to us. But otherwise, how did these happen? Otherwise, you have to call them miracles. Like I can tell you of Macmillan publishing Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada gave Bhagavad Gita, first he gave it to Allen Ginsberg, who was a poet laureate of America practically, published, best-selling. And he couldn't get it, no publisher would publish it. Even, he tried to use his personal influence. So then Prabhupada gave the manuscript to Ray Rama, who was in the publishing industry. He was a writer. He tried, and everyone they send you send the manuscript to the publisher, and then they return it to you with a letter of rejection. This went on, and finally he gave up. He gave the manuscript to back to Prabhupada. So then Prabhupada called me. He said, "Brahmananda, now you get it published." So I didn't know anything about publishing. Just a 23-year-old kid, fresh out of college. So I didn't know what to do. So I tried to learn how you get a book published. And there's a company in New York, the Bowker Company, very famous in the publishing industry, and they even gave courses on how to get a book published. And they had textbooks, and I bought the books, and I was studying and trying to learn and everything. But I didn't know what I was doing. We went to New Directions, we went to Grove Press, and all the kind of offbeat presses, avant-garde presses. Nobody wanted to touch it. And then, I don't know, you can call it whatever you want to call it, a coincidence, an accident, a miracle. Prabhupada made the record, the Krishna consciousness record, happening record. And, I put advertisements in the Village Voice. And somebody sent in an order for the record with a check, and it was on the letterhead of the Macmillan Company. Well, I knew what Macmillan Company was. I read many books from Macmillan. So I ran upstairs to Prabhupada and said, "Oh, Prabhupada, look, we got a order for the record from Macmillan, somebody at Macmillan." And Prabhupada was very cool and calm, and he said, "All right, go, don't mail him the record, go there and personally deliver the record. And tell the person that you have a Bhagavad Gita to publish." I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, should I take your Bhagavatam books to show them, you're a published author?" And Prabhupada said, "No. Just tell them you have a Bhagavad Gita to publish." So I went there, I dressed up in my suit, because I was working, and I walked in there, and the guy who had ordered the record, he was an accountant. He had nothing to do with the publishing. He was just an accountant. A small guy. I mean, the fact that he used Macmillan letterhead for his personal, shows where he was at. I think it was kind of misleading, because he wanted the record for his personal, but he was working at Macmillan, so he used their letterhead. So I'm sitting there with him, and I can see this guy has nothing to do with publishing, and he just wanted the record, and that's all. While I'm sitting there, in walks a man, and he introduces me. "Oh, this is Mr. James Wade. He is our senior editor." I said, "Oh, Mr. Wade, very nice to meet you. I have a Bhagavad Gita to publish." He said, "Bhagavad Gita? I'm just what I've been looking for. We have our religious section, we have Buddha, we have Jesus, we have the Chinese and this and that and the Quran, and we have everything except the Bhagavad Gita, and I'm looking for one. And you have one?" I said, "Oh, yes. The author, he's a Swami from India, and he translated, Sanskrit." He said, "Oh, fantastic." He says, "Bring it in tomorrow and we'll publish it." The sight unseen. He agreed. So how does that happen? It certainly wasn't anything I did. And I ran back down to Prabhupada, and I burst in and I said, "Prabhupada, they want to publish your Bhagavad Gita." And Prabhupada said, "That's all right, okay." I mean, it's like he knew. He said, "That's all right." So I think everything that happened, all these big buildings that Prabhupada got, Detroit, and Watsika, and it's because Prabhupada desired it. And it happened because he's a pure devotee of Krishna. So Prabhupada didn't reveal how powerful he was, because I think it would have scared us. But Prabhupada was very powerful. Gopal Krishna Maharaj this morning, he referred to this conversation that Prabhupada had with Tamal Krishna in June of 1977. So it's kind of like the final. And Prabhupada was reminiscing of the past, and he was going back to 1970, actually 71, I think, when Prabhupada very suddenly went to India. We were very surprised. Because Prabhupada always used to say that, you know, my Guru Maharaj, he gave me the order to preach in the West. And India was for my godbrothers to develop, but my field is the West. So then why suddenly Prabhupada left? And this was just after getting the Watsika Avenue temple, which Prabhupada designated as the world headquarters. And Prabhupada was developing it there. I mean, it had so many wonderful facilities. It was our first big temple in America. You know, Prabhupada said, actually, my movement began in Los Angeles, not in New York. You know why? He said in Los Angeles, of course, before Watsika, they had La Cienega, which was a church building, quite large, and you know, it had all facilities, brahmachari quarters, brahmacharini quarters, temple, altar, and that's where Prabhupada introduced festivals, deity festivals, like the butter churning festival and the swing festival. We had little dolls. We painted blue. They were baby dolls, and we swung them. And so Prabhupada said, see, in Los Angeles, I introduced, and that is my movement. That is the beginning of my movement. So, anyway, so Prabhupada is reminiscing with Tamal Krishna, and Tamal asked him, do you regret having come back to India? And Prabhupada said, no, it is well, but my plan and Krishna's plan were different. When I was coming back, Prabhupada wanted to stay in Los Angeles and develop. All the temple presidents would come to Los Angeles, and Prabhupada would train them up. And he says, when I was coming back, I was speaking to Dwarkadish, and this is another thing. Prabhupada very rarely revealed, you know, his relationship with Krishna. Again, because I think, Shruti Kirti, you write in your book what Prabhupada's ecstatic symptoms, that Prabhupada rarely exhibited this because it would make Krishna consciousness so far out of reach for us, you know, almost incomprehensible. And Prabhupada didn't want to scare us. But here he says, I was speaking to Dwarkadish. And then he quotes, and this is what he said to Dwarkadish. He says, I do not know. I came here to live. Why you're driving me away? And then Prabhupada said, so while leaving Los Angeles, I was not happy. But he had his plan. Krishna wanted that, and this is what Dwarkadish told Prabhupada. He said, you left Brindavan this is in 1965, you left Brindavan. Now I'll give you a better place in Brindavan. You were retired in Brindavan, and I oblige you to leave. Now you come back, and I'll give you a better place. Better place means better than Watsika Avenue. So, he has given a temple 100 times better than Los Angeles. Is it not? So it is always by his desire. So, this is the secrets of Prabhupada coming to Brindavan, coming to India. And these are some selected quotes from Prabhupada's purports about the Krishna Balaram Mandir. One should voluntarily retire from family life at the age of 50 and go to Brindavan or a forest. This is recommended by Srila Prahlad Maharaj, Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, 5.5. One must go to the Brindavan forest and take shelter of Govinda. That will make one happy. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness is therefore constructing a Krishna Balaram temple to invite its members, as well as outsiders, to come and live peacefully in a spiritual atmosphere that will help one become elevated to the transcendental world and return home back to Godhead. Then Prabhupada writes about the ceremony, the installation ceremony, and the chanting of Hare Krishna, and then the rituals that the Brahmins and the Pandits performed. Since one may easily achieve the highest success by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one may ask, why are there so many Vedic ritualistic ceremonies, and why are people attracted to them? This verse answers that question as stated in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Vedas cha savir aham eva vedo. The real purpose of studying the Vedas is to approach the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Unfortunately, unintelligent people, bewildered by the grandeur of Vedic yajnas, want to see gorgeous sacrifices performed. They want Vedic mantras chanted and huge amounts of money spent for such ceremonies. Sometimes we have to observe the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies to please such unintelligent men. Recently, when we established a large Krishna Balaram temple in Brindavan, we were obliged to have Vedic ceremonies enacted by Brahmins, because the inhabitants of Brindavan, especially the Smarta Brahmins, would not accept Europeans and Americans as bona fide Brahmins. Thus, we had to engage Brahmins to perform costly yajnas. In spite of these yajnas, the members of our society performed Sankirtan loudly with mridangas. And I considered the Sankirtan more important than the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. Both the ceremonies and the Sankirtan were going on simultaneously. The ceremonies were meant for persons interested in Vedic rituals for elevation to heavenly planets, whereas the Sankirtan was meant for pure devotees interested in pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. we would simply have performed Sankirtan, but then the inhabitants of Vrindavan would not have taken the installation ceremony seriously. As explained here, the Vedic performances are meant for those whose intelligence have been dulled by the flowery language of the Vedas, which describe fruitive activities intended to elevate one to the higher planets. Especially in this age of Kali, Sankirtan alone is sufficient. If the members of our temples in the different parts of the world simply continue Sankirtan before the deity, especially before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they will remain perfect. There is no need of any other performances. Nevertheless, to keep oneself clean in habits and mind, deity worship and other regulative principles are required. Srila Jiva Goswami says that although Sankirtan is sufficient for the perfection of life, the archan, or worship of the deity in the temple, must continue in order that the devotees may stay clean and pure. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur therefore recommended that one follow both processes simultaneously. We strictly follow this principle of performing deity worship and Sankirtan along parallel lines, and this we should continue. So we all remember those Brahmins, they were performing those rituals for days. And every day. And Prabhupada ordered all the devotees, go have kirtan, go have kirtan. And the devotees, they were very happy to do that. And we had rip-roaring kirtans. And those rituals, I only saw a few of them, but they're very exotic. All these different paraphernalias, things. And I don't know, we kind of avoided them. But Prabhupada made it very clear that this is just a concession. Because the problem, of course, is that Prabhupada's concept of making Westerners into Brahmins, this is unheard of in India. When Prabhupada first came to India, and he was, putting on his programs, one big, I think he was a Sankaracharya in South India. He wrote an article in the newspaper, Swami Bhaktivedanta has ruined Hinduism. They could not accept. And Prabhupada had to defeat this kind of caste consciousness. Actually, then Prabhupada had, his name was Nrsinga Ballava Goswami. He spoke, and Prabhupada had programs for all the invitees, all the Goswamis and Brahmins who came, and Prabhupada had this, his name was Nrsinga Ballava Goswami, and he spoke, and he gave all scriptural references regarding, what is a Brahmin? And that Brahmin is not based on birth, but it's based on training. You can make a Brahmin. from someone who is not born a Brahmin. Then another quote was, the description of Vrindavan forest as given herewith was spoken by Krishna 5,000 years ago, and the same condition prevailed during the time of the Vaishnavacharyas 300 or 400 years ago. Vrindavan forest is always filled with the chirping and cooing of birds like cuckoos, ducks, and cranes. And it is also full of peacocks. The same sounds and atmosphere still prevail in the area where our Krishna Balaram temple is situated. Everyone who visits this temple is pleased to hear the chirping of the birds as described here. This is from 10th Canto. Then Prabhupada quotes Buri Punyavat Arpito, which were offered by devotees engaged in the greatest pious activity, worshiping the Supreme Lord by hearing and chanting, and so on. In our Krishna Balaram temple in Brindavan, there is a tamal tree that covers the entire corner of the courtyard. Before there was a temple, the tree was lying neglected, but now it has developed very luxuriantly, covering the whole courtyard, the whole corner of the courtyard. This is a sign of Buri Punya. Now I remember that tree. Actually, it wasn't a tree. It was like a stump. It was just there in the middle of the plot. Didn't have any branches, and it was kind of twisted. I mean, it really looked ugly. It was just sticking up. You know, it looked like, you know, in World War I where they, with the cannons, they bomb all the land and there's just a couple of twigs sticking up. That's what this looked like. And black and dirty, and so it became a big discussion what to do with this tree. So everyone wanted to cut it down. Even Bishwambar, Bhagaji, because Prabhupada asked everyone, he would consult, Bhagaji. He said, this is a dead thing, why keep it? But Prabhupada, he saw, this is not a dead thing. He said, you keep it. And that was a big thing because they had to build the temple around this tree. Same thing Prabhupada did in Juhu. You know, in the middle of the temple, there's a bael tree. You know, bael? Bael is a sacred tree. It gives very nice fruits. And even Giriraj Maharaj tells a story of how they had to cut down some of the coconut palms. And Prabhupada saw that. And he said, no, this is not, we don't do this. We don't cut down. So they had to build an access road, you know, going inside the property But there were all these trees there, coconut trees. And Prabhupada said, well, you just make the road go around the tree. And you can see that today. There's a tree right in the middle of the road. So Prabhupada instructed, after the temple was built and so on, and the worship began, then he instructed that during the arti, you take the deity paraphernalia, and when you wash it at the base of the tree, and all the water coming from cleansing the utensils, that will water the tamal tree. And we started doing that. And then you could see these little green sprigs coming out. And more and more. And then ultimately, big branches and blooming. But the tree that's there now, that's not the original tree, I don't think. I think that tree passed away in the 80s or 90s. Huh? 94, yeah. So they planted another one, but just see, the tree is as the same as the original, luxuriant. So that's all I got. Oh, I can, yeah, as far as my memories, I was Prabhupada's secretary. I don't remember anything. I don't know. The one thing I remember, when Prabhupada was going to do the arti in the temple, we were behind the doors, the curtain, and Prabhupada was standing there to do the arti, and while we're standing there, there must have been 30 devotees all running around back there. Someone's bringing the oil for someone's bringing the incense, someone's doing this, fixing the flowers, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was such a commotion, because I have to say, it wasn't very well organized. Who was the temple president for the opening? Who? Oh, Dhananjaya? Where is he? He ran away? Anyway, there was such a commotion back there, and they were forgetting things last minute, this and that. And Prabhupada had one concern. He was standing there with all this commotion, and he had one concern. His concern was that he wanted to open the curtain, and he didn't want anyone else to open the curtain. And the reason why is because it's the Acharya who reveals the deity to the world. So the Acharya has to open the curtain. So Prabhupada was concerned that in their enthusiasm, some devotee is going to come and throw open the curtains. So he told me, he said, Brahmananda, you stay by the curtain, you guard it with your life, don't let anybody touch it. So I went there, and nobody came near the curtain. And then, of course, Prabhupada opened the curtain. And then the next thing is that, Prabhupada was giving out assignments, telling, all right, you do the deity paraphernalia, you do the flower, you do this. I mean, he had to assign everyone to do the different functions. So then he gave me an assignment. He said, hey, you take care of our chief guest, the governor, Chana Reddy. You take care of it. I said, Prabhupada, I'm supposed to take care of you. This is my service. Because I was arranging, I had to execute everything that Prabhupada wanted. So I said, Prabhupada, Prabhupada said, no, more important than serving me is serving the governor. So I had to go and sit with the governor all day, serve him prasadam, take care of him. So that's my memories. There's the conversation, Prabhupada, it's recorded, this conversation with Dr. Chanareddy. Chanareddy, he wasn't so spiritually inclined. And Prabhupada spoke to him mostly on Varnashram. What the duties are, how society should be divided, and so is that enough? Well, if anyone has any question, I'll answer.
When Prabhupada came for Janmashtami through Radhastami,
Oh, yeah.
that visit, there was you, there was Hare
1974.
No, 75. And Nitai and Upendra. And you came for about 3 weeks. It was Prabhupada's first visit back to the temple after it had been opened. You were the secretary. Then Navayogendra flew in from Africa after a week or two and joined the party.
Yeah.
Nitai and Upendra dropped off when you all left.
Yeah. I only remember that I was trying to keep healthy. And I gave orders that only I would eat the Mahaprasadam. Because that was the healthiest, the cleanest. So I was taking the Mahaprasadam, and the main thing was, not to get malaria from the mosquitoes. And so I had a mosquito net and everything. They got me this bed, it's like a cot. What do they call that thing? With rope, it's made. Chaki or something? Chapor? Oh yeah, one day then anyway, I went to pass stool, and in India you always examine your stool, see what's going on. So I looked down in the stool, and the stool was alive. There must have been 1,000 worms, these white worms, all crawling and everything. I mean, I almost fainted. But I told the local guy, we had Pranav And he said, oh, this is normal. This is nothing to be worried about. I said, my stool is alive. Anyway, they gave me some medicine. It was finished. No, I remember in 1974 when Prabhupada, they told Prabhupada that temple is ready. Temple is finished. Prabhupada said, all right, we'll open it on Janmashtami. And he wrote letters inviting everyone. Here's a letter he wrote to Sridhar Maharaj, July 7th, 1974, to Navadvip. My dear Reverend Sridhar Maharaj, kindly accept my humble dandavats at your lotus feet. I am very much thankful to you for your kind letter of 17674 and your kindly accepting my invitation during the opening ceremony of our Krishna Balaram temple in Brindavan. Of course, it is provisional if your health is in good order. I am so much thankful for your appreciating my preaching work. And then Prabhupada gives his whole itinerary where he's traveling. And then Prabhupada gives him specific directions for travel. Regarding your coming to Brindavan during our festival, I assure you that I shall arrange for your comfortable journey in the following way. One way is to come by the Dum Dum airport from Navadvip by car, then fly to Delhi. Another second alternative is to go to Howrah station by rail and take the Delhi Expression. And if you so desire, some of our godbrothers whom you select may come with you, and you may let me know their names. I shall issue invitational cards to them. So Prabhupada was all set to open the temple, and we came, and we came down the road, and then, made the left turn. And there's the temple, but there was no temple. There was just a plinth and some columns with the steel rods going up into the air. And that was it. Prabhupada said, oh no. And they were, Guru Das and company, they were writing Prabhupada. They didn't want to, they wanted to please Prabhupada, of course. And, Prabhupada was always pressing, get it done, get it done. And, they didn't want to admit that actually they couldn't get it done. And the reason was because it was so difficult. You couldn't get any building materials. Building materials you had to get a license from the government to buy building materials. You couldn't go in the market. And at that time, the government was issuing building materials only for building factories, not for temples. They all said, we have enough temples. We need factories. So then, so what to do? So Prabhupada, every day he sent me and Pranav, went to Mathura. We had to take a Tanga. It took about 2 hours to get there, 2 hours there, 2 hours back. And then he would send me to go to the municipality offices, and I had to see this officer, and the file would go from one desk to another desk, And then I had to speak to him. Then we had to come back and tell Prabhupada what Mr. So-and-so said. And then Prabhupada would give the reply, because, you know, everything was no. So Prabhupada would give some replies, and then we'd have to go back. And they were giving licenses for building this Pagal Baba temple. You know this Pagal Baba temple? It's 8 stories high. You know how much cement and steel they needed? So all the licenses were going to Pagal Baba. And they said, you know, nothing for you. So, I mean, this went on for I don't know how long, maybe a month. Every day going, coming, every day coming, going. And then finally, we had to go to Prabhupada told us to go and invite the district magistrate. The district magistrate is not a magistrate, you know, with the courts, but he's actually the manager, the supreme manager of the district. Everything has to go through him. So Prabhupada said, you invite him here. So we did that, and he came. And Prabhupada took him out to the construction site, but he didn't say a word about construction. All he did was preach Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, Bhakti, you know, devotional service. And they spent quite some time walking around, and Prabhupada simply is preaching. And then the district magistrate left, and a few days later, we got the licenses. And as we were, because then Prabhupada had to leave, I don't remember, going to Ahmedabad or someplace. Anyway, as we're pulling down the road in the car, as we're going down, there must have been about 24 lorries filled with cement bags and all the big steel rods, and they're all coming, and you had, you know, 100 workers there emptying the truck, bringing everything into the go down. And I said to Prabhupada that, you know, when you came here, there was nothing, and now that you're leaving, there's ample building materials. So that was due to Prabhupada. Prabhupada's desire. So then, okay?
Brahmananda Prabhu ki jai, Gargamuni Prabhu ki jai. They got us on every level. Wonderful audio presentation with Prabhupada's lecture, this video presentation, Gargamuni Prabhu has arranged, and of course hearing from Brahmananda Prabhu. So every part of it was very fulfilling for us. So I'd just like to thank you personally, and we all want to thank you very much for coming here today. And whenever you come, everyone will be here to hear from you. Before we leave, it's almost 6 o'clock, so I want to tell you for tomorrow morning, 11 a.m., I don't know if he's still here or he may have left. We'll be hearing from Guru Das Prabhu. He should be our sole speaker tomorrow morning from 11 to 1 p.m., so be sure to be here on time for that. And then in the afternoon, from
Who's giving the Bhagavatam class?
Bhagavatam class is Gunarnava Prabhu giving Bhagavatam class tomorrow morning.
Is Sarabi here?
Yes,
He's here?
yeah, he's here. And then tomorrow afternoon, from 4 to 6 p.m., we'll be hearing from Her Grace Shruti Rupa Mataji, Vishalini, and Arundhati Mataji. And I was just speaking with them, Shruti Rupa. She'll be speaking a lot about Jamuna Devi and so many dozens and dozens of instructions that Srila Prabhupada gave her personally in how to perform the worship, how to do so many different things. So again, tomorrow afternoon, we're all very eager to hear from them. So thank you very much for being here. The next program is here. Kirtan is in the temple right now, already going on. And then later on this evening, of course, will be the cultural program again here in Krishna Hall. A lecture. Six or 6:30 lecture here by Srila Prabhupada, which is an opening of the temple here. So that will also be going on here. Thank you very much. Hare
Anyway,
Krishna.
I have my book. Anyone wants my book, get it from Gargamuni.
Swamiji.
It's called Swamiji. It's about Prabhupada in the 60s in New York City, how he started this movement in 1966. Hare Krishna, 500 rupees.
Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Namaste Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. We couldn't get in that way. We had to go through the Prasadam hall. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Well, that could be the reason, because the two that get so long. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyam, Jaya Radhe Shyam. Jaya Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyam, Jaya Radhe Shyam. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Haribo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Gaur Pramanandi Hari Hari Bo.
Hare Krishna. So we'd like to welcome everyone this afternoon. Today is day 4 of the 40th anniversary of the opening of Sri Krishna Balaram Mandir. And from this point, each session will be having at least 4 devotees speaking, as there's so many devotees that can offer their remembrances of the temple as it was opened and Srila Prabhupada. So, and tomorrow morning, Dhananjaya Prabhu is very rich in history in ISKCON in so many places, and particularly here at Krishna Balaram Mandir. He'll be giving Bhagavatam class. Well, he's saying he's giving his memories. So it'll be the Bhagavat Krishna Balaram class tomorrow morning. So he's also going to open it today, and then we'll move along, and he'll probably also be closing the session this afternoon. Dhananjaya Prabhu, I've had the opportunity to be around him many, many times, from the early days on to recent history. When I see Dhananjaya, one of the things I always remember is the picture of Srila Prabhupada putting a Brahmin thread on him. It's one of the great classic ISKCON photographs, him getting his Brahmin thread from Srila Prabhupada. But that's just a very small part of his wonderful career in Krishna consciousness. He was one of the first devotees in the UK and one of the very first pioneers from the UK to go to other places. In 1973, when I was Srila Prabhupada's servant, he was sending Dhananjaya Prabhu to Rome to open up the first temple in Italy. And Prabhupada, who knew me so well, knew me better than myself, he tried to save me from an oncoming situation. And he said to me, "Do you want to go to Italy?" He said, "You can go to Italy with Dhananjaya Prabhu and help open this temple." He said, "Because you're Italian." So he put those two things together. At least I look Italian. All my grandparents are from Italy, so I definitely am Italian descent. And I declined. And anyway, I missed that opportunity to have his association. And then, of course, he came here, very first temple president, Krishna Balaram Mandir. And those of you who have been here over the years, you know him and his wife, Bala Gopal. They were managing MVT and the restaurant. And her menu that she made, she declined to come up here with all the Prabhus today in her humility. Her menu still stands at the MVT restaurant. So I'll move along quickly. Satyanarayan Prabhu, he is BBT trustee. Present day, he's doing a very amazing and wonderful service in the Far East and the Middle East. He has Prabhupada's books being printed in 14 different languages throughout these countries in the Far East and the Middle East. The Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, many small books. So his efforts at this time, he certainly has the blessings of Srila Prabhupada, especially distributing, seeing so many books distributed in Muslim countries. Shankar Prabhu here in Saffron, he joined in 1971, Boston, and took initiation 2 years later. And he's still cooking now in Alachua. He cooks the Sunday feast for 500 devotees. And Alachua Temple, those who go there know they have a very wonderful Sunday feast. And he also has the distinction of being Krishna Balaram, the deities here, one of the first cooks. He cooked, and he has very wonderful pastimes to tell you. Srila Prabhupada had a very special relationship with Shankar Prabhu, and I'm sure he'll be telling us about that. My godbrother Hamsarupa Prabhu, also very important service here at Krishna Balaram Mandir. He was in charge of the construction of Srila Prabhupada's Samadhi, which began, you said, 1984, assisting Sarabi. So he was definitely hands-on for several years, and we can see the result here by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. And also you got the property in Alachua, many, many years ago. He helped. He's just a servant, a helper. But yes, he was instrumental in getting that property. Alachua Temple, of course, in Alachua County, has probably 1,000 devotees or so, more or less, and is certainly the biggest temple community anywhere outside of India. Of course, if we count the manor, that's another situation. But as far as initiated devotees of Srila Prabhupada and his disciples, it's by far the biggest community. So again, I don't want to take any more time, and please give them all a very wonderful welcome to be here and tell us their memories.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you so much for coming this afternoon. I was told by Panchagoda Prabhu that I should concentrate on Prabhupada's pastimes here in Sri Vrindavan Dham, but I kind of can't help myself, but just to let you know the sort of background I came from. I'm Scottish, born in Edinburgh, and I happen to be Srila Prabhupada's very first Scottish male disciple. That's my claim to fame. I joined in July 1969 in London at Rath Yatra time, and so many wonderful, amazing things happened in that particular year. Of course, that's the year that a single was released on the Apple label, the Hare Krishna mantra chanted by the Radha Krishna temple, and that record reached number 9 in the British top 10, and it stayed there for 6 weeks. And even when Prabhupada came to visit us in September 1969, it was still being shown on television. And Prabhupada was very happy that the Maha Mantra had entered into over 15 million homes during that time. So he said, just see the potency of the holy name. And this television is the first-class media for prosecuting the holy name, spreading the holy name around. And he also came with us to Amsterdam, actually to Hilversum. Hilversum is where the Dutch TV studios are located, not far from Amsterdam. And the Dutch equivalent of the English program, called Top of the Pops in England, was known as Top Pop in Holland. And so they, the Top Pop people, they invited us as a pop group to appear on Dutch television. And Mukunda was the one who made the, he organized our visit there. And he said, our spiritual teacher is with us. Is it possible that he can come with us and that he can speak? And the guy said, well, it's a music program. We don't usually have people speaking. Everyone's singing, not speaking. He said, but in this particular unusual circumstance, we'll allow your teacher to speak for 2 minutes. So it meant that we had to leave very early in the morning, catch a flight to Amsterdam, be picked up, taken to the studios, and it was going to be a whole day's activity. And so Mukunda, he very kind of tentatively approached Srila Prabhupada and asked him, he said, Prabhupada, we've been invited to Holland to appear on television, and we'd like you to come with us, but unfortunately the only amount of time they're going to give you to speak is 2 minutes. Is that okay? And Prabhupada said, 2 minutes? I can explain the whole philosophy of Krishna consciousness in 2 minutes. I'm coming. So I think it was the one and only time that Prabhupada ever traveled with a pop group to a different country. And that was also quite magical and mystical, but I won't get into all the details. Unfortunately, I'm a details man, but I'm really trying hard not to succumb to all the details. But another time. Anyway, so then we were staying at the home of John Lennon for 2 months. That was an amazing experience as well, because of course George Harrison and his wife Patty Boyd would come along, and Gurudas Prabhu, he took so many amazing photographs of us all sitting in the kirtan hall, the temple room, eating off soggy paper plates, sitting on the floor on these simple mats. John Lennon, Yoko Ono, George Harrison, Patty Boyd. And they didn't seem to mind. They seemed to think this is cool. It's a cool thing. Because naturally they're used to so much opulence, and here we were in the midst of them, living in total austerity. That was quite fascinating also. And in 1969, of course, the Berry Place Temple was opened in December of 1969. And the deities came in a very mystical way. For those of you who don't know the story, I can tell you another time, because again, I'm a details man, and if I start talking about that, it's going to take forever. It was just extraordinary things happened. Of course, there was also the moon landing took place on the 11th of November 1969. This is part of the Apollo mission, and Prabhupada's servant at the time, he wanted to see that landing on the moon's surface. So it just so happened to be my turn to massage Srila Prabhupada. And the way I got to massage Srila Prabhupada was through the mercy of Trivikram, because he was Prabhupada's official masseur. But he developed very bad toothache, and he told me to go in. And the very first person I ever gave a massage to was Srila Prabhupada. And actually it's interesting, because the day before I'd personally asked Prabhupada for initiation, and he had said that we will see. And so the next day he got the opportunity to get to know me a little better, and he even quizzed me on British history and so many other different things that again I'm not going to get into. But there was actually 3 of us were taking turns in massaging Prabhupada. There was Trivikram, Ishan from Canada, Montreal, and myself. And that particular day, that landing was taking place live on television, was my turn to massage Srila Prabhupada. And of course, again, I don't want to get into all the details, but it was quite an amazing experience to be with Krishna's pure devotee when he's being challenged. Because the brahmachari who arranged for the television, who really wanted to see it, didn't agree with Srila Prabhupada. He took the side of the scientists and the side of NASA. Because Prabhupada was asking him, as I was massaging Srila Prabhupada, what do you see on television? What pictures are there? And he said, oh, they've landed in a crater, it's full of dust and sand and pebbles and rocks. And Prabhupada said, oh, there are no buildings, there are no people, there are no beautiful gardens, there are no beautiful birds flying around. And his name was Purushottam at that time. He said, no, Prabhupada, there's nothing there. Actually, the moon cannot sustain life. There's no air and there's no water. Then Prabhupada said very conclusively, then they have not landed on the moon. They have landed somewhere else. And this brahmachari couldn't accept Prabhupada's conclusion. Of course, Prabhupada's conclusion is the Vedic conclusion. And so he wasn't able to stay for very much longer. So that was quite historic occasion. And in 1969, the deities were installed on the 14th of December. And that's the day that Srila Prabhupada gave me the sacred thread, and that photo was taken, I think, by Gurudas. You took that photo, yes. Thank you very much for being there and doing that. And so we got the opportunity also to open a temple in Amsterdam. That was in 1970. And that's where of course, Surabi. He first met the devotees. His wife at the time, Kishori, who's also here somewhere. Is Kishori here? She's somewhere. But she became my first Bhaktin, along with a little boy called, later on known as Bhakti Kirtan, who is Surabi's son. And Surabi's younger brother, Hank Kailman, he also shaved up. I shaved him up and he became a devotee in 1970. And it took Surabi a little bit longer, not very much longer, but he came to Mumbai and he met with Srila Prabhupada, and then Prabhupada convinced him that he also should become a devotee himself. And that's where he got the name, in Mumbai, Surabi. And of course he's the amazing architect who designed the Bombay project, the Vrindavan project, the Manipur project in the northeast of India, Prabhupada's Pushpa Samadhi Mandir in Mayapur, what to speak of so many other projects that he took up. He was very prolific and a tremendous aid to Srila Prabhupada. And of course we heard from Brahmananda Prabhu how he was able to draw and make the sketch of what we now know as the Krishna Balaram Mandir. And in 1973, as Shrutakirti Prabhu mentioned, we asked Srila Prabhupada permission to open a temple in Rome. And he very simply said, yes, you go there, you find a house, you write to me, and I'll come and stay with you. That's all he said. He didn't ask, can you speak Italian? Do you know any people there? You got any money? No. Just you go there, you find a house, you write to me, and I'll come and stay with you. So we went there, we found a house, we wrote to Srila Prabhupada, and he came to stay with us for 9 days. That was 1974. And before that, for the first big international Mayapur Vrindavan festival, I was also present. Prabhupada personally invited me in the beginning of 1974. In those days, Prabhupada would communicate generally by aerogram. An aerogram is like an airmail letter. And so I wrote to him explaining what we're doing, and we've just made the first Italian Back to Godhead magazine called Ritorno a Dio. And Prabhupada was very happy with that. So there was a typed part of his response to my letter, and then underneath the typed part, he wrote in his own handwriting, I hope you are coming to Mayapur also. That's all. And I thought, well, that's a personal invitation. So then I got the opportunity to go to Mayapur and also to visit Brindavan Dham for the first time. And what happened was, I was walking just behind Prabhupada and Gurudas. And Gurudas Prabhu was the temple president at that time. And he was explaining to Prabhupada that he was very concerned that there was insufficient manpower to help with the construction of the temple. So I was overhearing, I wasn't part of that conversation, but I overheard it. I said, excuse me, Prabhupada, I would like to volunteer. I'd like to come and help Gurudas in Vrindavan. But he stopped and he turned to me and he said, what you're doing in Rome is much more important. Don't leave Rome, stay there. And what happened that summer? Prabhupada visited the temple, the Rome temple. We had just installed the first Sri Sri Gaurnitai deities in Rome. So he came, and like I said, he stayed for 9 days. But then in the month of October 1974, I got the opportunity to visit Srila Prabhupada in India. Someone bought me a one-way ticket for £75. And there was a whole reason for that, but again, I'm not going to get into all the details of that because it's very time-consuming. But I was thinking of another thing. We were still in this mood of pioneering, opening temples. And I had arranged for a devotee who spoke Italian to take over the running of the temple. This is in end of September, beginning of October 1974. That's how I was able to become freed from that responsibility of the Rome devotees and the Rome preaching that was going on there. And my wife and I went back to England And it was there that this particular devotee approached me and said, please, I want you to hand deliver a letter to Srila Prabhupada. And if you're willing to do this, I'll pay your ticket to India. And that suited me fine because I just met a family from Sri Lanka, and they were related to the Prime Minister at that time. She was the first female Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, called Mrs. Badaranayaka. And they were so impressed with the manor property that they said to me, they said, if you want to come to Colombo, our capital city, and open a temple there, we will provide you with a house, we'll provide you with funds, and we'll cooperate with you 100%. So I thought, this is an amazing opportunity. And so this is what was first and foremost in my mind, was that when I got to see Prabhupada, after I hand-delivered the letter, I wanted to request permission again to go to Sri Lanka to open a temple there. Anyway, when I found out that Prabhupada was in Mayapur, Gargamuni Prabhu, he was on his way to Mayapur. He drove me to Mayapur. We got to the Lotus building, and on Prabhupada's floor, the first person I met was Brahmananda Prabhu. He was Prabhupada's secretary at the time. Of course, at that time he was Brahmananda Swami. So I came into his office and I said, I want to hand deliver this letter to Srila Prabhupada. He said, you're not hand delivering anything to Srila Prabhupada. I get to get all the mail. Hand over the letter. And I thought, well, I'm not going to argue with him. I was quite a weakling in those days. I was a little thinner than you see me today. And he was like a, you know, forgive the expression, he looked like a sumo wrestler. He could just chew me and spit me out, you know, really easily. So I thought, all right, I surrender, here's the letter. And then I said, can I go and see Srila Prabhupada? Now I've given you the letter. He said, on one condition, you don't mention anything about the contents of this letter, okay? So I said sheepishly, okay, I agree with you. So he let me in, but he came right behind me. And in the room already, there were a number of devotees. They were all GBC men sitting with Srila Prabhupada in his darshan room. There was Jai Pitaka, there was Gargamuni, there was Jai Tirtha, there was Bhavananda, and of course Brahmananda. So there were 5 GBC men. And so I paid my obeisances, and the first thing that happened was that Jai Pitaka says, Prabhupada, Dhananjay is British, he doesn't need a visa to stay in India, we need help in Mayapur, he should come and work in Mayapur. And I thought, that's not what I want to do. Thank you for the offer, but you know, I was saying that mentally, I didn't say a word, I just sat there. And then when Prabhupada noticed that Brahmananda had just come into the room, he looked at the 2 brothers, Gargamuni and Brahmananda, and he started reminiscing. He said, it is so nice to see the 2 of you together in one place. He said, you've been separated for so long because Brahmananda was Prabhupada's secretary, traveling the world with him. Then he started to say, I remember that time when you had to leave West Pakistan very urgently because a war had started between India and Pakistan. And some of the local people in Karachi, that's where they were saying that these sannyasis were not really sannyasis, but they were CIA agents. And they, you know, they experienced some really awkward situations there, and they thought, well, it's time to leave. But there were no more flights between Karachi and Delhi. The only flights were operating from Karachi to Lanka, Sri Lanka, Colombo, on PIA, Pakistan International Airways. So they had to fly to Lanka, wait there for some time, and take another plane to Delhi. And so Prabhupada was he remembered that journey they took. And he said, you know, there is a Bengali saying, and of course he spoke in Bengali, and besides Jai Pitaka, none of us really understood what Prabhupada said. Then he translated, he said, according to this Bengali saying, anyone who lands in Lanka becomes a Ravana. He said, that's why you won't find many Bengali families living in Sri Lanka. And I thought, my God, why did Prabhupada have to say that? I'm saying this to myself, obviously. I'm not speaking out loud. I'm just mentally thinking. So if Prabhupada asks me what I'm here for, what am I going to tell him? I can't say a foolish thing and say, well, Prabhupada, I want to go to Lanka and open a temple there, after you just said that. So it was a bit of a dilemma. But as normal, Prabhupada saved the day. Actually, they were talking about something else. Then Prabhupada stopped talking. Everybody else went quiet. And Prabhupada would do this quite regularly. We're having meetings, and all of a sudden he'd become very introverted. And so all of a sudden he said, so, I have made a decision that Dhananjaya should be the temple president of Vrindavan. And all the GBC men went, Jai Prabhupada, that's a great idea. And I'm going, what? So he said, you all agree? You're all unanimous? And he said, yes, Prabhupada, he's British. He's a good boy. Yeah, he'd be good for Vrindavan. He said, all right, we will make a GBC resolution here and now. There's a quorum of the GBC. And then he took out this little lined exercise book and started handwriting that on this particular day in October 1974, there was a meeting of a quorum of the GBC, and it was unanimously agreed that such and such Das should become temple president of Vrindavan. Then Prabhupada signed it and dated it. Then he handed the exercise book to all the GBC men to get them to sign and date it. Right in front of my eyes, you know, and I hadn't said a word. I'd been sitting there the whole time, speechless. Then Prabhupada says, all right, all you GBC men, leave the room. You, Dhananjaya, you stay here. And I thought, well, what's going to happen now? So they all leave, they close the door, and then Prabhupada looks at me and he says, so you like this idea? Or do you prefer to do service in Mayapur? I try to become philosophical. I said, well, it's just like if you have a ripe mango and you bite at the top of the mango or the bottom of the mango, it still tastes of mango. It's very sweet. I said, I understand, Prabhupada, you want me to go to Brindavan, so I'm ready to go to Brindavan. Then he says to me, he says, the difficulty is that in Vrindavan right now, Harikesh is thinking he is the president of Vrindavan. And you can't tell him that we just had a resolution passed that you're going to be the temple president. I don't want to upset him. Prabhupada is so diplomatic, so tactful. And I thought, well then, what am I going to do? He said, I'm going to still send you to Vrindavan, and you work with this Indian devotee called Pranav, and you look for land with sweet water in Ramanreti. Because at that time there was some cows. Gunanavar, I'm sure you remember the Sahiwal cows, the big, beautiful brown cows that came from Agrakant. And they're the best breed of cows for surviving in desert-like conditions. They're also very cool-tempered. They never get upset, right? And in fact, when I got to Vrindavan, the Sahiwal cows were living next door to the hut that we were living in. And so anyway, and then he also said, by the way, where is your wife? I said, oh, she's in England, Prabhupada. He said, call her here immediately. He said, wherever the wife is situated, the husband will surely go. And I don't want you to go back to England. I want you to stay in India. So how she did that was she sold all my new kurtas and dhodis that I just bought during the Mayapur Vrindavan festival. And that's how she got the Lakshmi to get the ticket. And so when I got to Vrindavan, I was greeted by Brahmananda Prabhu, and Sarabi was there, and it was wonderful. It was actually so nice and quiet. There was practically no traffic in Vrindavan. As far as I can recall, I think there were like 2 ambassador cars, wasn't it? And the rest were bicycles and tractors and cycle rickshaws and bullock carts and ox carts. Very, very peaceful. And empty also. Practically nobody there. Except, of course, for all the construction work that was going on. And they were most of the construction workers were Bihari ladies, not men. They were carrying all the bricks. And I asked Gurunanda, I said, how come there's so many ladies and practically no men? And he said, well, the ladies can carry more bricks on their heads than the men. Very tough ladies, the Biharis. And like I said, it was a construction site. And the only finished room, because the temple wasn't finished, the only finished room was Prabhupada's darshan room in his house. And that's where they had the arti ceremonies and classes. So after bathing, and there was this beautiful well that was called the Prabhupada well. And that Prabhupada well is still there. If you go to the Prabhupada Samadhi Museum on the left-hand side, opposite Prabhupada's Murti, you'll see in the floor somewhere there's a round circular wooden piece. And that's the cover to Prabhupada's well. And that water was warm in the winter and cool in the summer. Absolutely extraordinary. And it was just so blissful. It was such a nice place. The water we'd take out of the well by the bucket and the rope, you know, simple living. And I just felt so much at home here. Of course, when I bathed and dressed, put on tilak, went to the temple, the first person I meet is Hare. He's coming out of the temple as I was going in. He said, "Hey, Dhananjay, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm here to look for land with fresh water, sweet water." He said, almost like intuitively, "Are you sure there's no other reason you're here?" I said, "No, I had to lie." I lied to him. And so there we were, in this beautiful location, with this beautiful project going on. Totally a source of inspiration from His Grace Sarabi Prabhu. Thank you so much for giving so much of your life here and energy into this project, this wonderful project which is blossoming incredibly 40 years later. Extraordinary. So he didn't ask me any other questions. I'd passed the test. But then, what was I going to do? Because I actually went out with Pranav to look for land with sweet water. But as most of you know, in this area, you only find salty water. Of course, in the beginning, the wells right next to the International Guest House, they were full of sweet water. And when we asked Prabhupada, why is it there's so much nice sweet water here? He said, this is Balaram's mercy. Because it tasted like sugarcane juice. I remember distinctly, it was a 90-foot deep tube well. But of course, later on it turned very salty. And then I asked, I said, Prabhupada, how come now it's very salty? He said, because it is ocean water. And I went, what? Ocean water? The ocean's like 1,000 miles away. How can it be ocean water? And he made this kind of diagram with his hand. And he said that just like if you think this is the ocean or the Arabian Sea or the Indian Ocean, and there's so many different layers. There's layers of clay, there's layers of sand, there's layers of rock. And as the water seeps through all these different layers, sometimes all the salt is removed. Just like you have water filters. It's like a water filter system. But then if you draw too much water from one place, it attracts salty water. And he said that's what happened. Too much water was being extracted too quickly, and it became spoiled. So then what to do? Because I'm not into construction. You know, I was always like a temple president or a manager or something like that, and there's nothing for me to manage there. They were doing it. Saurav and Ganarnava, they were expert managers. And then one devotee from Delhi showed up, Tejas Prabhu. And he said, are you happy here? And I said, well, I'm happy to be in Vrindavan, but I don't really have much service to do. He said, well, why don't you come to Delhi with me? And I'll train you up how to make life members. Because Prabhupada put Tejas there. You know the famous saying, Tejas means Delhi, and Delhi means Tejas. Actually, Tejas was like he said that Delhi is the gateway to Vrindavan, and also the source of income for Vrindavan. A major source of income from Vrindavan, Delhi. So I took up his invitation, and we would go and visit so many businessmen and so many shopkeepers in Delhi. Then he had the idea of going to a place called Moradabad. And for those of you who don't know about Moradabad, it's a world-famous brass-making center, especially for ornamental brass. And there's so many multimillionaires live there. So we went there. In the meantime, I'm writing to Prabhupada asking, is it okay I work with Tejas like this? He said yes. He said, and of course I'm sure you all know this phrase, an idle mind is a devil's workshop. So he said yes. Don't have an idle mind. Go to Delhi and work with Tejas until further notice. And the further notice came the following year in 1975. But I want to stop here because my godbrothers are sitting very patiently wanting to also speak. So I'd like to hand the microphone over to Satyanarayan Prabhu. Is that okay? Yeah, and maybe I'll say a little bit at the end, but not right now. If you don't mind, thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Imam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravana Visharani Namaste Shashnavari Pasarate Shitarani. Boy, how do you follow that? I just wanted to give some impressions of some of the events that took place leading up to the opening. I first came to Vrindavan 14 months before the opening. But first I just wanted to mention that Dhananjay Prabhu mentioned 1969. I think that that was important in a lot of devotees' lives. In 1969, I was going to the University of Buffalo. So many devotees came from there. In fact, that's where I first met Tejas Prabhu. But I was, I don't know, a freshman or something, and Srila Prabhupada actually came to the University of Buffalo with Allen Ginsberg, the poet. But it's all like a haze to me. But the impression was there enough that I joined a few years later. And Tejas actually was one of the temple presidents in one of the 3 temples of Buffalo. And he played an important part in my life a little later. But after having collected I was on Rupanuga Swami's bus as a pujari, and we went around the USA, but I collected funds and came to India in 1974, where again Tejas was the president of the temple in Delhi. And my first impressions from India, about India, was that very quickly there was, how I termed it, an intimacy of service that India afforded one, no matter who you were. Like I was just collecting funds and distributing magazines in America, like so many devotees at that time, in different ways. But then in India, suddenly I arrived, and I believe it was either the next day in Delhi or the following day, I was on the roof cooking chapatis and bringing them in to Srila Prabhupada. And I was actually assisting Lakshmi Moni, who was cooking the sabjis. And Srila Prabhupada was sitting very regally in a kind of a little hut. Tejas seems to have disappeared.
It's over there.
Where? Ah, Haribo. And Prabhupada was just sitting alone in this kind of hut, or I think it had a canvas opening, and I would come in and bring the chapatis, hot chapatis to Prabhupada, and it was not a stretch to see Srila Prabhupada as kind of the greatest general like a military general, the way he would always say, Camp London, Camp Vrindavan, and he was just sitting there alone, strategizing how to take over the planet. There was such power emanating from that little room. And then just a few days later, he said, it's time to go to Vrindavan. So we all got packed in cars and went to Vrindavan. Of course, my first time there. And my impression of Vrindavan, we would have Mangal Artik outside one of the construction buildings. At least I remember that. And it was very cold. This was February '74, but the purity was beyond, beyond description of the situation there. And that, of course, was culminated when we were staying in the Fogel ashram. Of course, there was no place to stay here. There was just a pit where the construction was going on. And the highlight of the day was running to the temple in the early morning, past the pillars with the rebar crazily pointing out, and finding our way to Srila Prabhupada's room, where he would be giving a class. It was the only, as Dhananjay Prabhu said, it was the only finished little house. And one day Srila Prabhupada was giving the class, and he looks suddenly behind us with a big smile on his face. And we all turned around, and there was George Harrison and Ravi Shankar, the sitarists. They just walked in, and I think everyone had this, it was just an amazing feeling to be there with such remarkable personalities. And one could quickly see the consciousness of both George and Ravi Shankar. George went immediately to the front, and he sat in a lotus posture in front of Srila Prabhupada, and was kind of in a lotus position, and he had his beads out. And Ravi Shankar went to the back, and he had shades on. And I think Srila Prabhupada's emphasis in the class shifted, and he said, you should give everything to Krishna. And the class didn't go on much longer than that. And George, he got up, and Srila Prabhupada said, will you stay for Prasadam? And George said, but we have to go to the Yamuna, Prabhupada. We wanted to go to the Yamuna. And then it was interesting, Yamuna Devi was there in the room, and kind of surprising to everyone, George ran over and he kissed Yamuna on the cheek. And we were, and this was confirmed later, I just heard